He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play. And you know what? That's never been more important than now. Hey, before we get started with the show, I just want to do a bit of a disclaimer. If you're listening to the show, through the weekend, from Friday through the weekend, this is actually being recorded on Friday for some technical reasons. You're obviously prepare for the tropical storm that probably is headed our way. And, expect, a little bit higher than normal storm surge for a tropical storm of this size, and, a lot of rain and, wind that comes with tropical storms. So just prepare for that. And also just prepare for a hurricane, because you never know what's going to happen. Just be ready for whatever might come. We're good at that. Just pay attention to the weather and just know what the situation is. If you're listening to this on Monday morning on the radio, this, whatever it is we saw coming in on Saturday night, Sunday morning, and then throughout the day Sunday, and probably some lingering effects on Monday. And let's just hope everybody's safe. We've got a great show today. We've got Chief Leonard Papania from the Gulfport Police Department. He's been on the show before. We had a terrific conversation about his life and his passions. We're going to have him in the first half. And then Michael Hughes, who's a lawyer in Gulfport, written 3 books. His most recent book has gotten really good reviews, and I look forward. It's going to be a fun conversation with Michael to talk about his 3 books, and especially the most recent book. So anyway, without any further ado, let's turn to the Chief. How are you doing, Chief?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
It's great to have you back. I went back, and we'll put a link to it. We'll put a link to it on this video, the past conversation we had, the hour-long Coast Vue session that we had. And I closed it by saying that you are a police chief with a heart. And I really meant it. I mean, you're leading not only smartly, but with your heart. And what that means is your ability to reach out and show compassion and show empathy in whatever the situation might be has been terrific, and I appreciate your leadership. You were actually due to retire in August, and because of the COVID situation, you kind of just decided to stay on, and now we have this unrest in America today that we'll talk about today, and maybe it's a good thing you did for that reason as well, because I think having a police chief with a heart who's been a terrific leader in this city and along the coast, I think, the time is right for you. Maybe call that a little divine intervention. I don't know how you see it. Is that the way you see it?
Well, we have some updates on that. As the COVID thing was becoming more under control, I have reinstated my timeline, and I'm slated to finish up my police career August 31st.
Okay, well, there you go. That's the latest. Hopefully between now and then you can continue to reach out and communicate and be a valuable member of the community. You're still going to do this when you go into your passion for the homeless community. There's no question about that. And we're going to have the benefit of your leadership, because you know what? The solutions are so complicated. I mean, we talked a little bit about this offline, but there's a problem that needs to be solved. There are very few people that deny that reality. Now, some people may see it as being worse than it is. Some people may see it as being less than it is. But what I said on the show is we really need leadership, and we need a Marshall Plan to begin to focus on the issue. There are short-term, intermediate, and long-term issues that need are answers that need to be implemented, and it's going to take leadership. And I think we can do it. I mean, America is a great country, and we've had difficulties before. We'll get through it again. And as my friend Dorothy Roberts said, she said, it's one person at a time. We need to go at this one person at a time, turn people's hearts and soul, get them to open up their brains for a minute, and we can make a big difference. But it's complicated. And by the way, when you add social media and misinformation and media dividing us and all the things that are happening in America and the politicization of this situation, man, it makes it even more complicated. I wish we could strip all that other stuff away. I'm not dumb about it. I realize you can't. but I wish we could, so we could really get to the root of the problem and begin to take steps to solve the issues in America. I know you've been spending a lot of time thinking about it. So, kind of what's on your heart today?
Well, there's a lot, but, you made reference to national leadership. I think that's where we're wasting a lot of time. It's quite evident, and national leadership from all sides has already demonstrated. I think they lack the desire and want to give up the political points to even embark on trying to unify our country. And so what we need to do, and it's going back to what you mentioned, Dorothy Roberts said, we need to do it on smaller scales. We need to look at our own community and ask ourselves, what is it we want in our community, and go about the business of putting that into action. And I think those things need to happen. And it all starts, Ricky, with the one question: what is it we want? Because anybody can go out into social media and on the internet and find videos or statements or talking heads to support their reason why they're not budging. And if that's where they're going to stand, then we can expect to continue the same. Or we can say, you know what, we want to be a better unified people. And then it gets difficult because as we look, especially, and the subject at hand is the relationship of the African American people with the rest of the nation, and most importantly with law enforcement. And I've said over and over and over, the reality is there's a poor history between law enforcement and our African American community. Now, I say that on the end of a 29-year police career. Very proud of what I've done, and I'm proud of what we do. But culturally and historically, there have been some problems in policing. We were the enforcers of segregation, and law enforcement has always done the will of the majority. And so it's going to take more than just law enforcement. It's going to take the majority saying, we want to be a unified people.
I definitely agree with that. And, that the problem with social media is that, as you said so eloquently, is that people can readily find a point of view that they believe aligns with them. And once they find that, then they get more and more impressions of that same message coming at them, and they close their minds. And I've been reading more about this subject. Listen, all my career, because I was a publisher of a newspaper, I've been interested in the discussion of race relations, and I have supported diversity, and I've supported equality, and I've wanted to understand. And there's just a lot of issues. There's so many issues, and it's not going to be one thing that solves this. But I think the most important thing, and you allude to this, is that if we could just get everybody to have an open mind, just get everybody to let's go into this. Let there just be a little crack in your consciousness. Please, let there be just a little crack in your consciousness that says there's more that we can do. And the majority of the people who are protesting today, by the way, they're peaceful. They're being, I think that there are conservatives that are driving wedges. There are Democrats and liberals that are driving wedges. It's hard to sort through it all. Protests are being hijacked, and you've got violence. There's the whole issue of that every American has a contract with America, and if you feel like America's broken that contract with you, you don't feel a responsibility to abide by whatever that contract says. We've got to talk about that. But it's hard to sort through it all, but it really starts with an open mind, doesn't it? An open heart.
It does. And there's so much question, where do we go? I think the fundamentals on which our country was founded are, I believe, going to be our answer. And a lot of people are distraught with their country, but they need to understand you're being distraught with your current political leadership and their interpretations of what our country stands for. And I have not lost faith in the American dream and the American principles, but we've got to go back to human dignity. And that is the true foundation of why we can be a better people. You look at how the U.S. stands in the world, and we're a leading country. What if we were a united country And where would we be then?
Listen, Chief, I wonder all the time about this, but politics in America has gotten so entrenched. And, I think that most Americans are somewhere in the middle. I talked to one of my African-American friends, a leader, he's a professional, a couple of days ago, and he describes himself as an independent. He used to be a Democrat, but I would say he was probably a moderate Democrat, but he was a Democrat. He sees himself as an independent today because he feels like the Democratic Party has abandoned him in a lot of ways. And then over here on the other side, the Republican Party, there are a lot of conservatives who are somewhere, or moderate conservatives. So a lot of America is somewhere in between. And you can't get into politics today unless you're assigned to one of the outside realm of this. You can't be in the middle. We'll pick this up when we come out on the other side. This is Chief Leonard Papania, the police chief for the city of Gulfport, and we're talking about the current situation in America. We'll be back after this break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Well, welcome back to Coast View. We have Chief Leonard Papania from the city of Gulfport with us, the police chief for the city of Gulfport. And when we went to break, we were talking about the polarized ends, Republicans on one end, Democrats on the other. It's hard for moderates or independents to even have a voice in politics today because you just get stomped on. And we live in a shallow world, Leonard. I had a family member posted something this morning, not my immediate family, a distant family, lives in another state. And it was just this really shallow interpretation of the situation. And I explained, why this is more complicated than that. I even copied an article so that she could read a little more deeply about the situation to see if she really wants to open her heart. If she wants to read a little bit more about it, she can come to the realization that what she posted is not thorough, it's not accurate, and it's not fair. And you see that a lot, don't you?
A whole lot. And it's we live in a very fast-paced society. If you look at the layouts of your own phone, you can skim through and be exposed to an amount of information that historically would take us weeks to embark on. And now we can scan through it. And everybody wants an opinion. They just don't want to put in the work to understand their opinion. And I said during the break, people seek out canned thoughts so it can be given to them instead of them formulating it on their own. And the scary part is our media is well aware of that. And it is easier now in all this time where people have access to everything, it's easier now to guide people on their own thought processes. And so why is it complex to deal with racism? Because we're not even willing to form our own opinions. We don't dig back the layers and try and understand the things that are going around us.
Yeah, I read an article this morning because I am trying to broaden my thinking about this. And man, it's complex. And I had that thought. How many people are going to take the time to read an article like I'm reading now this a lot of words and describes the situation? How many people are going to be willing to do that? I love the way you said that. People expect a canned thought to be given to them. That's what social media has done, unfortunately. It's really reduced it to a canned thought when most of these issues you're not able to generate a conclusion about the solutions in a canned thought. That's just the reality. And someone said to me when they said, man, Ricky, you need to go into politics. I said, oh, no way, man. I would never be able to I would not be successful because I have such an independent thought process. I want to do my own homework, and the parties too often expect you to think a certain way. And as you point out, the media is all over that. Hey, one of the things that you said made me think of Alberto Ibargüen, who's the president and CEO of the Knight Foundation, who's a dear friend and someone who's been on the show before. And he lives in Miami, former publisher of the Miami Herald and El Nuevo Herald in Miami. And he's doing great work across the country. But when we talked about media solutions, I'm not talking about to the political situation, but I'm just talking about being able to provide vigorous media solutions for local markets. What he said was, there's so much noise on the national stage, it's impossible to even get your voice in. And that's what you're talking about, whether it be the leaders or whether it be media or whatever, that the solutions are local. And whether we're talking about media and providing good, objective media and ways to teach people locally, we can do that because there's not too much noise. And you're saying the same thing about this issue, that this issue, it needs to be tackled locally. And it's across a lot of dimensions. It could be creating jobs. It could create job opportunities and job training. It could be, making advancements in the way police communicate with the community. I mean, there's so many different solutions, but the solution is local. It really is local across the United States, isn't it?
It is. And I think sometimes that's a way to deflect and say, well, our country's such a big mess, and, what can I do about it? Get involved locally. There's only 72,000 people in the city of Gulfport. If you have a few thousand decide they want to make a change, they can make a change. And it goes back, how do we want to live as a people? And if you are not bothered when you watch the news of the violence, the hate, and the disconnect that's going on, if you're not bothered by that, you're really not going to be part of the solution. But if you are bothered by it, everybody has an opportunity. They have an opportunity to do what's right and engage in a better way.
What I would say do is see past that violence and begin to appreciate and understand, what are the peaceful protesters trying to say? What are they saying? Not even trying to say. What are they saying? Find a young person, white or black, and talk to them. And what I think you will find is that a growing number of people understand that we've got a challenge and we want to solve it, and that all efforts up to this point have not worked very well. And unfortunately, the politicization of it has made it worse. But I would say start by communicating with people. Find an African-American friend that you can sit down and have an honest conversation with, and open your mind and your heart and just find perspective. And realize that if every single person were to begin to do their homework and try to find out what role they're going to play, this world's going to be a better place almost immediately, isn't it?
It is. And I tell you, the key to everything is communication, and the key to communication is listening. Right now, when somebody speaks out and another person disagrees, they're quickly persecuted. And I think we're losing the ability to even communicate in our country. We brag about our First Amendment rights, and we tear down people who express their views. And so it's really kind of an interesting thing. We say we're American and we believe in all of this, as long as you're saying what I agree with. And so I think once we learn to listen and to care and to understand, I think those are the fundamentals of solving everything else we're talking about.
I agree. I definitely agree. So when you saw that video of Floyd, what was your visceral reaction to it?
Well, I've seen a lot of bad things in my time. And unfortunately, in the world we're living in, a lot of times bad guys will memorialize terrible things they do. And so to watch a murder, somewhat I'm anesthetized to some of the violence of it. But as I'm watching the perpetrator wear a uniform, I know the death was horrible, but the impact is going to be so much worse. I wear a uniform, and I will have to pay for the sins of that criminal that did that act. and so will everybody else that wears this uniform. Police officers have been killed as a result of that, and we don't know their independent stories. And so a horrible thing has happened, and hopefully we as a society can find something good from it to move us forward. Otherwise, it's just been a terrible waste.
Well, in our Coast Vue session, we talked about recruitment, how much more difficult it is to recruit people. I mean, I'm saying just a single cop. And I think one of the points you made is that when you lose a 25-year cop, it takes 25 years to get that experience. And if you have a problem at your house, you want an experienced cop coming to your house, or you want somebody just started coming to your house? So there's a lot of reasons to really encourage people to see this as a really viable career. And you've been really pushing on that. But what's happened is that the training that's necessary, the testing that's necessary, and the fact that African Americans too often don't see this as a field that they should go into makes all of recruitment and retaining police officers a real challenge for you. And you talk about that in great detail in the video that in our first session, and people should go take a look at it. But it's always about going back to the basics, though, isn't it? I mean, you just got to. There's a lot of detail.
I want to comment on something you're saying, and it's really interesting. What we're hearing across the United States is a lot of people are saying, police officers should be better trained at this. I agree with it. Police officers should better understand diversity. I agree with it. They should spend more time doing this. And you know what? We as a society should have a very high expectation of it. But it's funny, everywhere else in our society, we can put a dollar value to it. You want a police officer, you want me to give a gun to a 21-year-old, train him, say, go solve the world's problems, and then you're only willing to pay him like a nighttime manager at Burger King. Where else do you have to have the diversity of skill sets? And the failure to have them can create so much negative impact on our society other than law enforcement.
That is so well done. Hey, you know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say that you expect all those things in that young 21-year-old that you're giving a gun to and asking him to be a policeman to protect us. But you're not willing to put those things inside yourself. You're not willing to live with that kind of respect for others the way that you're expecting that cop to. So it's a multifaceted solution. We're at the end of our time together. We're going to come back together again in a couple of weeks. I'm interested to see how the peaceful marches go, and where are we in a couple of weeks from now. And I thank you so much for your leadership. We're going to continue to be friends, and even after you get out of this position, we'll continue to have this conversation, and hopefully more people will be impacted by the kind of conversations that you and I can have. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
This has been Chief Leonard Papania from the City of Gulfport.